nationalities. Most of our students are actually coming in from overseas now. So the demographics have also changed, and I will cover more about that later. Right. So we're one of the pioneer schools in Singapore that have been awarded the EduTrust. Okay, and impacted the lives of over 10,000 students in the course of our history. Our student population is averaging usually around 600 plus minus. Average class sizes of 25, some even less, because the moment we start to reach 25 mark, we start to think whether we should split a class into two instead, in order to give students better attention, a better teacher-student ratio. Okay, and that is what is distinctive about us. And later I'll share about our unique selling points as well. We have a diverse nationality range. Most of our students come in from China and Southeast Asian countries. So right now we have about more than 60% from China, and then the rest are mixed from Southeast Asian countries. But as you know, since COVID, a lot of the countries in Southeast Asia, there are some travel restrictions. So far, China hasn't seen that much of a restriction. However, just over the past week, the Delta variant has been found in China. So there are some restrictions starting to come in from over there. All right. Okay, so just to give a summary, we have over here 12 years education. Students can start with us from primary school, grade 1, all the way to senior high school. Okay, and then move on to a university overseas. There are multiple pathways, which I will share, with you what are the pathways that students may select in our school. And we have 4-year EduTrust certification by CPE. A unique point about St. Francis is that we select our teachers very carefully. They undergo training, teacher training, and they have experience working in local schools, whether it be the primary school or the secondary school side. So a lot of other private schools, in terms of teacher hiring, they are kind of more lenient. They do not necessarily hire teachers who go through this rigorous training program in Singapore in the National Institute of Education (NIE). So in St. Francis, our teachers are basically local teachers which are trained, and uh, because of that, although we have international qualifications, we infuse or we blend our local teaching pedagogy into the curriculum. This is very important because if we are talking about students wanting to come into Singapore, some of them may actually want to join local schools along the way. For example, if they come in primary school or secondary school, they may in fact hope to join a local junior college or local polytechnic after they complete their studies with St. Francis. And they are able to do that smoothly with us because our teachers and curriculum and syllabus are blended together. Whereas if they were to select another private school in Singapore, a lot of them, they are focusing solely on the international curriculum. So they import teachers from overseas, from say Australia, UK or US, and so the teaching and what is covered doesn't match up with the local curriculum. And so if they enter Singapore and they enter most of these private schools, it's okay if they were thinking of doing their education private all the way and go to a university after their high school. But if they were thinking of cutting into Singapore's education system to benefit in the Singapore's education system, they will not be able to really transit smoothly due to the difference in course structure and syllabus. Okay. Now, vision and mission. Okay. So being run by the Methodist Church. We're actually a registered charity. Registered charity in the sense that in terms of our philosophy, we do not take education as a something which we are actually profiting off in terms of profits. So in line with that philosophy, our school fees are actually quite low, quite reasonable as compared to other private schools, because we adhere to this kind of a policy. And what we do is that whatever school fees we charge, profit we make, we are actually repumping it into investing in students, investing in the teachers, in fact, investing in what is needed to actually get the students going. So if you take a look at our campus, we've been here for 60 years, but our campus is great. It's great for going through the private education, but we do not have like multiple swimming pools, tennis courts, heavy maintenance, because all these comes down to the school fees, which then we would have to raise and we would have to collect from the students coming in. We do have the necessary infrastructure, but we are quite prudent in terms of that. And where spending is concerned, we tend to invest in a holistic education in terms of the student experience. And that's where our investment comes in. So for example, Singapore's COVID situation was actually improving and we were expecting it to open further before the Delta virus actually kicked in. So we actually hired a vice principal of student services where she would be in charge of actually taking care of the interest groups, the student experience in the school, and a lot of like resources is pumped in that area in anticipation post-COVID, where we will be again allowed mass gatherings and activities to be going on. Okay. It's a mission school, so it does have has a Christian environment. Okay, we do have chapel sessions every week, and but of course, almost all our students are actually coming in from overseas, so they are not Christians themselves. Most of them do not have a religion, or they do, they may be a Buddhist from their home country, etc. So most of them are not Christians. Nevertheless, in terms of developing character, inculcating good values, St. Francis is the school to be, and we have an environment which is friendly to that. Yeah, so here are some of the core values that we impart to our students and we actually promote. All right. Let me focus on this slide over here. Now, let me okay, let me change. Give me a second to change this. Okay, I'm gonna change a slide to a more recent one. Okay, so it's 100% updated. Okay, let me share screen again. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, all good.
Okay, great. So let me just focus on this slide right now. Okay, I'll start from the primary school program that we have. It's called the Cambridge Primary Program. It is from year 1 to year 6. Now, the difference between this and the local primary schools in Singapore is that in Singapore, after they finish year 6, everybody sits for a local examination called the PSLE, Primary School Leaving Examination. At St. Francis, we offer the Cambridge Primary Program. So that means after year 6, they do not sit for the National Primary School Examination that is meant for the local schools, but they sit for what we call a checkpoint exam, Cambridge checkpoint exam. The difference between the two is that it is not so fixed in terms of syllabus. It is because at that age, students are actually quite young, and we want to focus them to focus more on holistic development instead of a pure academic push. That is what the local education system, unfortunately, at a young age, being an Asian society, is can be quite competitive. But nevertheless, like I mentioned before, our primary school teachers are from the system, the local system, and so what they teach, in addition to what is covered in the Cambridge primary program, like if you go to a Cambridge primary program in another private school in Singapore, we would offer that syllabus, but even more because we blend in Singapore syllabus in it. We teach more, so you'll actually be benefiting from two education systems, during their time here. So what we want to do is we want to prepare them so that when they go into secondary school, if they would like to go into a Singapore secondary school sometime during their, say, upper secondary school years, and they want to enter a local secondary school, sit for the O level, just like the rest of Singaporeans, they are actually well prepared to do that with St. Francis because of the way we teach. Okay. Now we have an English immersion program, but that really depends on numbers. So I'll leave that out for now. If we do get sufficient demand for that, we will have an English immersion program, and then we can prepare them better in terms of the language skills, right? But after our Cambridge primary program, our students will generally move on to the lower secondary school years with us. These lower secondary school years with us are actually foundation years, whereby when they reach year 9 and 10, right, which is secondary 3 and 4 in the local in, 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 in the local curriculum, they get to select whether they want to go for the Singapore Cambridge O levels or the international version of it, which is the Cambridge International General Certificate of Secondary Education, IGCSEs. So the difference between O levels and IGCSEs is basically the IGCSEs are more internationally focused, and they take into account that the mother language, the first language of the student would probably not be English itself. Whereas the Singapore Cambridge O levels, the level of English is pretty high, because in Singapore we teach English all the way from kindergarten, as a language that is used during lessons. And so when we reach up to this level, we find that the demands and the rigor of testing is pretty high. This, we would generally take a look at the student to see whether he or she is able to cope and which pathway is better for the student. Because if the student's intention is just to progress on to senior high, whether it be the International Baccalaureate program or the Western Australian Certificate of Education with us, or if they would like to progress to other international schools, it is not necessary that they select the Singapore Cambridge O level. What is probably better if they select the O levels is if they wish to go into Singapore's junior colleges, local schools, then this would actually match up more with the Singapore syllabus, because this is actually what the Singapore students will be studying for, right? But keep in mind, it does tend to be a bit more competitive, because Singapore's education tends to be a lot academic in terms of exams, and so there would be greater emphasis put if they select this path. Now, we used to have a lower secondary Australian program called the AusMed, Australian Matriculation, but which we just stopped, because basically we are still offering the WACE program, Western Australian Certificate of Education for high school years, but since it does not require the lower secondary qualification to enter, we decided to stop it so that we do not have too many pathways that could be confusing. Okay, so we are stopping the AusMed, and what we did was to add on another program called the Senior High School Preparatory Program. This is for grade 10 only, and it's a one-year program. Currently, it's pending CPE approval, meaning it's pending Singapore government's approval, which we expect it to be approved. And if when that's approved, we can officially send out brochures and information. And then our students will be able to start in January next year. That is where our school year begins, in January. So stay tuned for updates. What I would like to, say a bit about this high school prep program. Why did we have this high school prep program? It's actually because a lot of students coming in from countries such as maybe China, Vietnam, or other countries, they're split into junior high and senior high years. Junior high years being grades 7 to 9, senior high being grades 10 to 12. So when they want to come over to Singapore after they finish their junior high, when they finish grade 9, a lot of times we find it difficult for them to immediately jump into grade 10 and sit for an international exam for an IGCSE. So sometimes they again repeat 1 year, grade 9, before under the international syllabus before taking the grade 10 the following year. So in order to help them, we thought that if we have a bridging program, and it's a 1 year program, so they are not stressed over a set of exam syllabus that they have to follow and cram and sit for during the year, they could still join us for that 1 year, and that acts as a bridging program to the WACE or the IB program. So we will ascertain where they fit in and whether they are more suitable for the WACE or suitable for the international baccalaureate. Okay, so that one's coming up, and that's a really good option for many, right? For many who are not really sure, or when they are able to come in, sit for a test, and by the time they go through this 1 year program with us, our teachers will be able to advise which senior high school pathway is better for them. But let me touch on the two senior high school programs that we have right now. We have the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, IBDP. We also have the WACE program. We have been doing the WACE program for many years, and we are currently the only school in Singapore offering the WACE program, which puts us at a niche. There are pros with each program, and I'll go through them with you in just a few moments. But I just like to state that in the past, we did have an A-level program, International A-levels, Pearson's A-levels program, which we stopped taking in right now. We have this year our latest batch of graduates which graduated, and they did very well. But we decided to stop the enrollment for that because, again, we did not want to create too many different pathways for choice because it gets confusing. So we wanted to keep it at 2. Since the IB program is the newest introduced program, and we get to choose which other program we want to keep, we decided to keep WACE because it is a niche program that we have, and we feel that it's something that is really useful for our students. Why is it really useful? I would like to explain that getting into Singapore schools or Singapore universities is actually quite competitive. Despite that, St. Francis was able to send quite a number of students to local universities such as NTU or NUS every year. Okay, we have students going into overseas universities in Australia, good universities, as well as in Europe and North America. But why is the WACE program a suitable pathway for many? This is because this program actually allows the student to sit for 5 courses, but when they evaluate the students in terms of they call it an ATAR score, ATAR, we allow one subject to not be counted. So they will count like 4 subjects instead of the 5. So that gives way to students who may be weak in English, for example, but they're strong in their mathematics and sciences, and they'll be able to score well and get into the local universities. As compared to the IB program, where they will take into account the language as well. So that's where the main difference lies in. Besides the fact that the IB program, students actually take 6 courses compared to the 5 in Western Australia. So they take more courses, 6 core courses. They do have 3 others which are so-called it's tested, but it's not the 6 main courses. So they are taking more courses in the IB program. In terms of competition, there are a lot of private schools in Singapore offering the IB program as well. And so when they sit for the testing, the local universities tend to inflate the grade point entry for IB programs if they intend to come into local universities. So, as long as they are with us and they go through, say, the WASTE program with us, as long as they score over 90, the top 10 percentile, they are eligible to apply to local universities. And we found that is a pathway that actually a lot of our students go with successfully. Okay, let me just give you an example of our results and where our students go to. Our primary school program, our checkpoint after year 6, we can see that the global average for English is 3.7. Despite taking in students whose mother tongue is not English, we are able to boost them up and they are able to improve their English by the time they graduate with us in the primary school program, and they are able to do, surpass the global average for the English scores. If you take a look at our math and science, we're really strong, and this is because Singapore has been placing emphasis on math and science. We are actually ranked first, first in the world in some surveys in terms of the math and science results of our students. So we're keeping in line with that in terms of the teaching methodology, in terms of engaging the students. We're pushing up their math and science. That is why if the potential student coming to Singapore, if the intention is to study like finance or mathematics, science, engineering, studying with us here in San Francisco is actually a very good option because it provides them with the adequate grounding and foundation when they move on to their university. So they won't feel that it's too taxing when they go into universities. It'll be kind of quite smooth because a lot of it would have been covered already. Now, examples of students who have progressed to local high schools such as Dunman High School, Nanyang Junior College. These are really good. L1R5 meaning to say the top 6 subjects, including English. Okay, so they would have scored something like 5 A1s and 1 B3, for example, for the 8 points. And L1R5 of 7 points would be like 5 A1s and say 1 A2, right? So straight A's, but just off in one subject or so. And these students are coming in from countries such as Thailand, right? What we see is that those who take O levels with us, 42% are able to progress on to local junior colleges, and 79%, about 4/5, are able to progress on to local polytechnics. So what is the difference between a junior college and a polytechnic? A junior college is something like a high school program, right? Like an IB program, but it's a local version of a junior college. The local version meaning that they sit for the A levels, Singapore A levels, and it's more subject orientated. Whereas for polytechnics, you actually choose a course where you are interested in, such as fashion design, computer programming, something specific, but they do it for 3 years, So often in Singapore, after they finish polytechnic, they don't have a university degree, but they can actually find work. They will be accepted in companies because they don't have to train them from scratch. And then they'll be able to also, many of them, study part-time or continue their studies in a private university after their polytechnics. Now, for those who do well in their polytechnic, they're also eligible to apply to Singapore universities as well. But that tends to be the minority because in Singapore, by tradition, most of the graduates are actually coming in from the junior college batch. So we have quite a high percentage of local Singapore university students coming in from junior college, and then a smaller percentage coming in from the polytechnics. Right, and these are the examples of our students scoring distinctions in their IGCSEs. So I was talking about WASTE. See, about more than 1/3 actually qualify for entry into top Australia's universities, right? Meaning to say they had an ATA score of 80 and above. And examples of WACE program. See, using our WACE pathway, they actually can get into NTU or NUS pretty easily. We have a constant batch of students doing that, and our student numbers are not so high, but despite that, we are able to get quite a number of people into popular universities through the WACE program. University of Sydney, NTU, some of them had offers in NUS, but they decided to take up somewhere else, so we do have examples of it. NTU Computer Science, Cambridge University, Natural Science, and this is the Cambridge in UK. Okay, managed to get that with an ATA score of 99.5. So that puts her at the top half of 1% percentile in terms of students who did successfully. So St. Francis is able to train the students and to develop them to the fullest potential. That is our goal actually, to develop students. So it's not like which university they go to, because eventually you'll be able to get into some university, right? So, but what kind of university, whether we can help students to develop themselves to the fullest of their potential, that is what a St. Francis education is. But that also requires time. And that's why sometimes when the student comes in, our ACAT also advises them, hey, why not you, we don't put you in year 10, we put you in year 9. You will have a stronger foundation, and by the time you reach over to the high school graduation, you'll be able to find a better university. Sometimes we do advise that as part of our ACAT advising. Okay, and a lot of students, they get offers from North America, from UK, from Australia, all over the place, right? Because it's St. Francis education has actually helped them, and our qualifications are also internationally recognized. Yeah. Some examples. Okay, so at this point in time, maybe I could open the floor to questions and answers. I have one here, right, from.
Thank you, Maverick.
Yep.
Yes. So you can see the question there.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a question from Mariah Tiranga that my student lives in the River Valley area. Would there be a school bus or shuttle van in a nearby area for students who are not living in Bukit Timah? So the answer is no, because we are actually located right beside the MRT station, the Hillview MRT station. So we do not provide we do not have bus services that are, or bus vendors that are affiliated to our school that will actually pick students up. The students would have to find separate transport on their own. A lot of time they travel through the MRT in Singapore, which is really convenient, and we are just right beside the Hillview MRT, meaning to say if you exit the MRT, it's just like 2 minutes away, just beside. So we're really close there. So I hope that answers that question over there.
Fantastic. Yeah, so if anyone has any questions now, good to see a lot of people here. And if you have any questions, please put that in the chat box for Maverick. So right now, Maverick, how many Vietnamese students are there currently studying at St. Francis? And do they normally study IB or WACE?
There's a mix. I do not have the exact number of Vietnamese students, but the Vietnamese students tend to be one of the main nationalities that are represented. We have the most students we have of any country is China, but that is also due to their population size in comparison.
Yes.
Next followed by Korea, right? And then after Korea would be a mix like Vietnamese and Thai, Indonesian, etc. Yeah, they do pretty well. We have Vietnamese students who've actually done really good. I'm not sure if let me see if I.
And what age group do they normally enter St. Francis? Do you happen to know that as well? Do they
Okay,
tend to start early, or
for
they come in
Vietnam,
at around year 10?
yeah, for Vietnam, they tend to come in at around year 10, but we find that the trend is that parents are actually bringing in their children earlier. And this is a trend that's been happening for some time. They're bringing in their children earlier than before. So, for example, I'll just share that, we have two things that were new. Our IB program that I mentioned was actually launched 2 years ago. So towards the end of this year would be our first graduating batch. Okay. And we also launched our primary school section about 2 years ago. So launching our primary school section, we started with just a few, when we launched, but it really skyrocketed. And we have over 180 students with us right now, and still, more coming in just in the span of 2 years. Now, our campus size is limited. So, when we open our primary school section, and our campus size being limited, I think our full capacity would be like around 700 plus students, that would be the max, and then we run out of classrooms basically. So our total headcount has kind of remained the same, and our primary school students have spiked, while our high school students have gone down as a matter of trend, but the total student headcount remains the same. So in terms of coming in, we have parents now actually bringing their children in primary school because they feel that they want to get them out earlier to have a more exposure at an earlier stage. And St. Francis is one of the few schools in Singapore that actually can help to apply for the long-term visit pass for the mother or the grandmother. So this is a very, very important thing. Yeah, because
so in some cases the father might stay back in the home country while the mother looks after the kid in Singapore.
Yes, the mother or the grandmother is allowed to accompany the kid and get this pass, and to stay with. But this only applies to the primary school section where the kid is 12 and below. It doesn't apply to the
high school. Doesn't apply.
Yeah, because high school they will deem them old enough, and for us, when they come in at that age, there are a few options. We do recommend guardians to them, right? And they would definitely have to have a guardian. A lot of times, the families also come here to work. They're posted. They have some kind of pass, but if not, we will recommend a guardian. And then the hostel also. They would have. We do not own a hostel, but we work with another hostel called Odom Hall, ACS Odom, and we would recommend them over there. Or the other route is homestays. We have homestays with guardians, so we can arrange all these things, and to recommend. Finally, it's up to the parents whether they want to accept this guardian or they want to accept this homestay and this arrangement, or they want to go for the hostel. It's ultimately up to the parents to decide which is best.
Could you I see some partners came in a little bit later, so could you remind like how much does it cost for the guardian fee, and how about the hostel and the homestay? What are the pricing there?
Okay, that one that would be a little bit different. For the hostel fees, I could try to check if I can get some standard brochures. But in terms of living in Singapore, if you were to say rent a room nearby the school, somewhere near the school, if you go for HDB, which is the government buildings now, over like 80% of households live in HDBs. If you go to that, the rental may be as cheap as 1,000 a month or something, and it really varies because the guardians have different packages. Like maybe they include their meals for the students, and then they'll add it in as a fee. So that would actually be done in consultation with the guardian, recommended for the fee structure. But basically, Singapore, the cost of living, I would say it can be really cheap and it can be really expensive. Because what happens if we have food courts out there, and you can get cheap meals out there. There's no service charge, in these food courts. So say you go to a food court, you can get something for like $5. You can get a meal. Yeah.
It's more just about what can our students expect, or the families expect to pay 1 year for the living, and more for the lodging. So staying with a homestay family, how much would that cost per year, roughly?
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll get you. I can revert again for the range. I believe, if it's around like 2K a month or something like that,
Yeah.
depending on the type, low end or higher end, it
Yeah.
would vary.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would
roughly
be
there.
good. If you can get that information, that would be great.
Yeah, sure.
Fantastic.
So I talked about the primary school. The primary school long-term visit pass that we are able to get. In terms of transportation, I've covered. In terms of application to St. Francis, I would like to stress that we work closely with our agents. So we have in our website an online application portal, Open Apply, but that is actually meant for also for our agents to actually apply with their students. So if you have any inquiries, please contact Yes Education and Bo himself so that he can or they can do the application on your behalf. All right, because it can get confusing sometimes when applications come in directly, and then halfway along the way, we find out it's actually working with our agents, and so it messes up the admin a little bit. So for clarity, please consult Yes Education with the name of your potential student, and they will make the application for you on your behalf.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Right.
problem. Yeah. Just let us know if you have any applications. We'll help out for that. We'll give you the application form and checklist.
Yep.
So would there be any changes in the fees, school fees for 2022?
We don't expect to change in 2022. We have tried to hold back on changes on school fees because the COVID situation. We understand it may be tough for a lot of people. But okay, having said that, I would just like to actually reminded me on one thing that we are offering is actually online education, right? Currently, we are offering online education for grades 7 and grades 8. So these are meant for students who have registered with St. Francis, but they can't come in because they are waiting student pass or student entry approval. They can actually sign up for our online classes and at 2 weeks block. So minimum 2 weeks, but then they can keep extending 2 weeks, after and all that. Currently, we started out with grade 7 and 8, but we have the intention to actually expand it to other grades. Might not It might not expand further in the high school side, but I have to confirm at a later stage. But I think the primary school side, we're thinking of doing it at least for maybe grades 1 to 5. So I can't 100% confirm because this has been going on in the management meetings. We are hoping to expand our online offerings in term 4, and just to share a bit about these online courses. Currently the cost is really affordable because it is meant to help students, because we have been receiving feedback that they are concerned that if the COVID situation drags long, and they may not be able to cope if they come in at the end of the year instead and be having to sit for the year-end exams. So this has been taken into consideration. We have the cost currently at about $400 Singapore dollars a week, so minimum 2 weeks. Besides that, there is an administration cost of about 150 and a special testing fee of about 200. And if they are tested and everything, we know their level. If they choose to apply to St. Francis following that, we will take it that they have already done their testing. So this is open to students who have applied to St. Francis, awaiting to come in and want to keep up. But B, if they are actually in their school holidays and they have nothing to do and they want to consider St. Francis, they are also very free to sign up for these online classes to check us out. And they can check us out for minimum 2 weeks, and they can extend, or when their school holidays end, then they revert back. But they at least would have gotten the chance to get to know us and to engage with us in some form.
Fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's no more questions, I think we'll end that today. And if anyone does have any questions that they think of, just don't hesitate to get in touch with me, Ivy, or Franklin at Yes Education, and we'll be more than happy to help you with any questions related to St. Francis. So thanks everyone for your time today. I hope you're staying safe and well, and we'll catch up soon on the next webinar. And thank you, Maverick, for your lovely presentation today.
Thank you for having me today.
No problem.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. And please, if there's any questions or any interest, please also feedback to Yes Education. Any issues or things we'll be able to revert and to clarify. And
Great.
yeah, and looking forward to have more students
Yes.
coming into St. Francis.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks everyone.
Bye-bye.